passing on to our children. My wife Wilma is here, and Katrina, my other daughter, and we have one son, Philip, is that sticking to principles, do a lot of traveling, continuing education, of course the core values of integrity, honesty, professionalism, spirituality, environment, and so on. And this may have come from, I come from a family of 10. My father was a doctor of medicine. My mother was an art teacher. But I spent 4 years of my life in the seminary, SVDs. And these are German fathers and Americans. They're so strict with discipline. I was very serious with my Latin. And a lot of international learnings among all of them. And when I started the company, I started with those core values, including elevating the Filipino professional in our global standing. And in our first, I left Ayala. I was with Baby Nuesa. I was with Ayala Corporation Ayala Land. I headed the planning and architecture team of the Ayala Group before I put up Palafox Saucets. And before that, I was with Henry C. as a consultant. And it was Henry C. and the late Enrique Zobel who enticed me to come home. We were the first Filipino family in Dubai, and it was the ruler of Dubai who name-hired me. I did not apply for that job, so I was one of 20 professionals from 14 countries. So it was really a big challenge. I was the youngest, the only Southeast Asian, to work in an international team. And I think it was also a life-changing moment in my career, because the youngest, the only Southeast Asian, and the ruler of Dubai just gave us 5 challenges. Bring Dubai into the first world from the fourth world, design Dubai as if there's no oil, create a garden city out of the desert, and make Dubai a pace-setter city in the Middle East, from the first world into the first world into the first world in 15 years. And one thing I liked so much was the family can go around the world for every month of service. And the ruler instructed us, go around the world and copy. That was my first exposure to benchmarking. So my colleagues, they went to the usual London, Paris, New York. I went to cities that became first world cities in less than 15 years. San Francisco, Hong Kong, Singapore, Zurich, and Geneva. And that really impacted on me. But before going to Dubai, I was working in the World Bank funded Metroplan Manila to pay back my United Nations scholarship grant at UP. I was lucky enough to have worked with David Kunsunhi, probably the best public works, transportation, communication secretary we ever had. And he got me appointed to lead World Bank funded projects. And that's how the Dubai people came to know about me. And the rest was history. Now back to the legacy, I think I've been passing on to my children the discipline, time management, sticking to your principles, walking the talk. And I think Karmi can better describe what she's been learning from me. And I think one of them is agreeing to disagree. Like I went to Harvard, and she talked to my professors in Harvard. She wanted to take up urban planning and environmental planning, which is the best school in the world. And my Harvard professors told her, go to England, because they are more serious with the sustainability. Take it away, Karmi.
Thank you, Dad. Well, first of all, thank you to Chicky, Chit, and Boots for the invitation for my father and I to speak to you. When I was preparing what to say today, I felt like I was preparing my father's eulogy. Because although I must say it's a good opportunity to be able to reflect and think about the legacy that he's leaving my brother, my sister, and I, as well as the other architects and urban planners that work for him. And he's been back and forth for continuing education in Harvard University. But the course that he always talks about is about this course headed by a professor wherein he gave a homework to top developers, architects from around the world. And he said the homework is, imagine your children are writing your eulogy for you. What did they say? So I think my dad would have aced that homework because a lot of us have a lot of good things to say about him and to credit him for. And what I did was, I asked my sister, my brother, and our colleagues at the office, what are the best quotable quotes by architect Palafox? Because he's not just creative in terms of his designs and master plans, but he's also very good in terms of motivating the team. And there are some quotes that we all live by. The first isn't originally from him. It's from his favorite architect, urban planner, Daniel Burnham, who did the first master plan for the city of Manila, and then Baguio, even before he master planned Chicago. And he said, make no little plans, make big plans. So my father lives by these words, not just professionally, but as well as personally. So he's really a visionary. Some clients credit him for literally transforming wastelands into beautiful, happy communities. One example would be, for example, Rockwell Center, which was a very pollutive power plant. And then he had this vision of creating it into a very sustainable and the first model of mixed-use development in the Philippines. And today it's one of the highest land values in Metro Manila. And then he also has this habit of sending postcards from the future to mayors, vice mayors, and other politicians. And what they are he takes very ugly pictures of the cities, and then he shows how they can be transformed into beautiful places. So when he started doing this, he thought he'd have enemies, but instead he won friends and clients. As for example, a street such as this can be transformed into a pedestrian-friendly street such as this, or old rivers that are very polluted with informal settlements can be transformed into places like this. And this has been done, for example, in Estero de Paco in Manila. So we did this for several towns, and we feel it's the most effective. This is an actual picture from Manila Bay, North Harbor, and then we showed the newly elected President Arap how it could possibly look if you put people first in terms of thinking about our developments, our environments. This is our vision for Pasig River, which we have yet to see, hopefully in my lifetime. But what really started was, when we were younger, he told us, take snapshots of your future. So I remember him talking to me, I think the first time we talked about this, I was only 12 years old. He told me, and he did the same to my sister and my brother separately, take snapshots of your future. If let's say in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, where do you see yourself? What are your goals? So this is something that I continuously do around New Year, every year. And it's helped a lot in terms of making sure everything I do has a purpose, everything I do will benefit people around me. And without asking for my father's permission, I scanned for some of his own goals from years back. And just to show that he was able to reach several of his goals way before his own target, his own deadline. So he targeted things in terms of goals for money, health, family life, personal achievements, status. And he was able to do them ahead of time. For example, he intended to write the book by the time he was 60. He was able to have our own book about his work in our company when he was only 48. And then his intention was to bring the family around the world by the time he was 50. But I, for example, have seen the world by the time I was 13 years old, so he was only in his 40s. And then he also had this goal of being in the top 500 architects in the world by the time we were 20 years old in the company. We did it when we were 10 years old in 1999. A quote that he always tells every one of us is, if better is doable, then good is not good enough. So we're not allowed to say, pwede na yan, that should be okay. And we're always told to do more than what is required. So for example, we're supposed to come up with 2 or 3 concepts for a building. Sometimes we come up with 15 or 20 until he's satisfied that it's the best design for the property and for the end users. This was the mantra of Palafox Associates when our office was new. We are professionals, serve professionals. So these words pretty much encapsulate the values and principles that that serve as our lighthouse in the office. When we were starting, he would always say, and as today, we have to live by the words of honesty and integrity and professionalism. And part of this is really elevating the Filipino national. So how to make sure we're globally competitive but remain national focused so that we're always conscious about making sure whenever we're there to present for a project, we're not just representing ourselves or our families or our company, but also our nation. So this was him in his early years in Dubai and collaborating with foreign professionals. The next is Pro Deo Patria et Terra, for God, for country, and for planet Earth. So my father left his parents, he was only 13 years old, to join the seminary. And it's because of that background that he really finds strength in prayer, especially in his advocacy against corruption for country and for planet Earth. I think my father is very unreasonable. He's a very unreasonable businessman. So my mom, who helps us in terms of our accounting and finances, would always scold him and say, we're running a business. You can't always give free advice to government, to NGOs. We have salaries to pay and rent to pay for. But really, that's his priority, how to give back. So this was him in his early years as a student activist. And that's how he met my mom. And then as an advocate of how to upgrade the living conditions of people along Pasig River. And there have been instances when we have had to walk away from projects because of corruption or because what the developer intents are against our principles. If, for example, we recommended a certain density and it wasn't done, and we know that that project will cause traffic or inconvenience for the community. Such was the case when we walked away from a project with a big fee because they were going to kill trees, mature trees, in exchange for a casino.
Maybe I can interject there. It was a challenging decision. We got a $120 million project in Subic, a hotel casino, a 6-star hotel. But we were instructed to destroy 366 70-year-old trees. The architect's contract was $1 million. And some corruption was with it also. So I consulted Karmi and the rest of the staff. It was November, before Christmas bonuses. I told the staff that we can keep the $1 million and let the 366 trees be destroyed. But our professions of architecture, urban planning, engineering are very noble professions. So I've decided, and the whole of the staff agreed, that we return the $1 million contract. Because if we keep the money, we're no better than a prostitute. We love the money, but we don't love the job. So we returned the $1 million contract. I got 50 million pesos in libel cases, death threats, and made a lot of enemies. But somehow, a couple of months afterwards, we got so many foreign clients. They heard about the story. Even CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, they came to meet the crazy architect who would give up $1 million just to save a few trees. And not knowing that with all the challenges, difficulties, we lost some friends, it came out to the better. That's walking the talk for God, country, and planet Earth.
Part of our job is also helping educate those who are in charge of our communities and developments. And I'm happy that I get to experience that with my father. A quote that he always says as well, development is not worthy of the name unless it's spread evenly like butter on bread. Every time we design a residential community, or what's commonly called a subdivision, we always advise our clients to allot about at least 20% of the development for the lower income community. I mean, it's not just out of charity or goodwill, but it just makes sense so that people are nearer to their places of work, and in effect would help ease car traffic as well. And we're always guided by what he calls the triple bottom line. You know, this goes against what most architecture and design schools teach here. Usually when they teach Architecture 101, they start with, okay, you find out how many square meters is the property, how many square meters is the house going to be, what design will it be, and they almost never ask who will be the end user. And that's always something that we try to find out, and it's our starting point, because whatever line that we draw or design will affect our clients either in a negative way or a positive way. Will they be benefited or will they suffer? Such as an example, when we worked on several projects like constructing schools in Iran after an earthquake. The next is, knowledge is one thing, imparting it is another. So at 63 years old, turning 64, my dad still goes to school, and he encourages us and my siblings to do the same. By the time I was 24, I already had 2 master's degrees, and my father still keeps telling me to go back to school, and I'm still in school now.
Never late to study. Every time there's a global crisis, I go back to school. I'll learn the mistakes. And in fact, last year, I'm 63, I went back to Harvard again. Because one thing good about, at least the Europeans and Americans, they share their mistakes where everybody can learn. Unfortunately, in our part of the world, we hide our mistakes. And it's only my Harvard professors, the first question I always ask them is, especially the big-time architects and developers, if I give you a big eraser, how would you have done it any better? Since they are my professors, they're paid to teach me, they tell me inside the classroom. But outside the classroom, they are my competitors. They will never tell me that. Opportunity to ask those questions. And I was a lecturer of Harvard before I became a student 7 times. And one thing I encouraged me to enroll was that when I was a lecturer there, students, professors, lecturers, and even alumni attended my talks. And I found out when you ask the right question, you already have half the answer because they were asking the right questions. So it encouraged me to keep going back to school, the Graduate School of Design. So I encourage my children to keep going back to school. In fact, Karmi right now is enrolled to Barcelona, Hong Kong, Indonesia, and so on after her 2 master's degree. And there's always something to learn. And the best lessons usually the last mistake you made.
And I think this is similar to what was discussed earlier by Tita Baby Nuesa. Value isn't really anything unless it is shared. So my father would always say, you know, what's the point of these degrees if you don't share it? And he always tells us to speak and to share what we know. Another is travel as well. So we're quite lucky. When my sister was only 3, she already got to see Europe. And as an urban planner, I really appreciated it. At such a young age, I was exposed to that. We're lucky that our father told us to dream our own dreams. Never did he tell us when we were kids to be an architect or an urban planner. And it was seeing the world and getting exposed to other cultures that have taught us a lot. My sister and I yesterday were recalling how in our travel, sometimes when we go to a construction site, like when SM Mega Mall was new, he'd give us paper as kids and tell us, critique this building, how would you improve it? So all our travels on weekends and travels abroad was a chance to work. So lessons learned from mistakes made. We're a very democratic family. We're allowed to argue. We're allowed to have healthy discussions on possibilities, whether it's about running the office or our designs or our family. Know your limits and ignore them. In preparing for this talk, I was aware that it's a women's business summit. And I wanted to recall a quote about my father encouraging me about being a woman, especially working in such a macho industry, construction, architecture, real estate. And I couldn't think of any. So never did he put us in boxes. You're a woman, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this profession. You have to get married at a certain age. You have to dress or talk a certain way. I can't think of any instance, whether it's with me or my sister or my brother. And it's the same for our people who work with us. We're never limited. Graduates of colleges and universities and provinces have equal chance to excel as graduates from schools in the UK or the US. And sometimes at work, I wish he gave me limits because I'm sent to not very safe areas in Sierra Madre, in Mindanao. I'm asked to climb mountains, to enter caves. But I'm happy that my father really instilled us and that in us, and it's a strong message that we can really be what we want to be, do what we want to do. And lastly, I'm so proud of you. So I think all parents say this to their children, but we're happy that we have a father that openly says that to us all the time. Within the first 5 minutes of meeting anyone, my father shares that I was the first Filipino born in Dubai, as if it was my own achievement. And this matters a lot, especially because I work for him, I work with him, and it sometimes gets frustrating to be told, oh, you know, you're so lucky, you're just inheriting your father's practice, you have big shoes to fill, etc. So I'm very happy that I have parents who are very proud of us, and we look forward to really continuing the work that he has started. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please stay. We have a few minutes. So, any questions? I think we should ask the mother. Okay. So, I wanted to ask, how do you mentioned about being able to disagree. How do you disagree? I mean, is there like, I should ask the mother again, but how do you do that? I mean, I'd like to look at the dynamics at home, you know, because you work together, you travel together, do all these things.
Yeah, a lot. Like things like pedestrian crossings. My U.S. education, we are more open-minded to elevated walkways, interconnected. Her British education, they'd rather have people cross on the streets. So these are some of the minor agreements and disagreements, and we compromise eventually. The other one is took her 9 years since 10 years ago to convince me to go on with the succession planning, which
So practical.
so we did it last year only. After 9 years of trying to convince me, I kept disagreeing, and I thought I was a Superman. Then last year I agreed, and I was hoping they would retire me this year, but they said I should stay until I'm 70 years old. But after the succession planning, I'm more comfortable now delegating much of the work. Like she now heads our urban planning group and some of the administrative work rather than me doing it. Yeah. And somehow at home we do a lot of agreeing to disagree. Yeah.
That's at work.
It works.
Okay, and it works. You want to say anything?
At home, I think I learned well from my mom. Just kidding. In terms of agreeing to disagree. But I think we were raised that way, to respect our parents, of course. But them also, they never really talk to us like children. And I think we're able to do that because my father knows that he still has a lot to learn. And we appreciate that he also knows that he has a lot to learn from us. Because if it wasn't that way, I don't think he'd be allowing us to be able to disagree.
So I like the fact that one of the things as a father that you did was to remove the gender from the activity, right? As you said, you had to climb all those, of course, in shorts, di ba? Bilib ako, parang di bali na magasgas yan. Basta in fashion pa rin. But that's exactly what I think a lot of fathers and mothers should be doing, is to remove the gender in the issue. You can't be an architect because you're a woman or something like that.
Yeah, there are thresholds. Like Carmi doesn't live with us. She's on her own. Because she got tired of talking shop even over dinner, over weekends. And the other thing that I've noticed in our family is when we travel together, I think the threshold of patience is 11 days.
Then you have to go home.
After the 11 days,
Okay.
there are more arguments already.
No, okay. Because people are tired, that's why. But that's a very interesting sharing. I love this session. Any questions? Yes, ma'am. Over here, please.
I appreciate very much what I learned from your presentation as a family. I just want to have a protest. You know, your statement that prostitutes love money, but not the job, I don't think that's fair. Because it's the prostitutes who need the money. They don't love the money. They don't really love their job. So I hope that that will be remembered. Thank you.
I stand corrected.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions from the floor? Any questions to the mother? You have to commend Miss Wilma. Can we give her a round of applause? You want to stand and sing?
Hi.
This
Hello.
is amazing. There she goes. Diba? It's hard, huh? I mean, I could imagine the dynamics between father and daughter would be even, and how you manage powerful personalities at home is a feat by itself. So, yeah.
One question there.
And?
There's one question.
One?
Another question.
Another
hello,
question,
hello,
sorry.
Hello, Virginia Lane here, and I just heard about succession planning. My family and I have been attending the succession planning for such a long time, so many times. However, it hasn't been sunk into our kids' minds that one day they'll have to come into the business. And that is our predicament at the moment. The youngest is interested, but quite different in his approach. I have a very capable daughter, but she's married, and she's dedicated her life to her husband and the family. My number two is not really interested in business. He just wants to do charity work. And how do you think I should approach my situation?
Yeah. Include non-family members. Because my family is open to the fact that we may not always be there. So we have trained people to be successors as well. Even my children, I told them they can go anywhere else in the world. They don't have to stay with the company. But if you leave that company, there should be a professional group that will be able to take over. Even owners of the company were sharing it. Like last January, even our financial consultants were telling us, it's not time to give bonuses But January, we had good collections, so we shared it. And February, the collection was not that good. We should have followed the financial advisors. They told us to give the bonus after we pay the taxes in April. But we said, it was a good collection month, January. So people got bonuses in January, and everybody gets to share, including the messenger and the driver. And this is one thing that sometimes I'm not a good businessman. I don't follow the expert, and we just share it. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanna build on that and ask Carmi, because here's a thing where a child, a daughter or a son would like to join the family corporation. I have the same problem actually. All my kids are artists and they don't want to go into business. But we manage that by saying, okay, you're members of the board, but you need to know the business so you can hire the professional managers to run the business. But I'd like to ask Carmi here that about what was it like for your environment that wanted you to work with the family business?
It came very late. So when we were kids, when the three of us siblings would talk, we'd say, none of us will be architects, okay, because we'll be working 16 hours a day like Dad. And I actually had finished economics with the intention of working for a bank or somewhere like NEDA or the ADB or work in research. But it was when I was doing my dissertation. It was about mixed-use development, and we had just moved to one. We had moved to Rockwell then, and it got me interested. And I think it's that, as well as exposure from all the years. And the first 2 years of working with my father was tough. I would tell people when they say, "Oh, so you're the automatic successor," and I would always say I wasn't. And to answer her question, I think what would help is finding how your own purpose would fit to the purpose of the company's work. So in those first 2 years, I had job offers. One was to be a sustainability manager in an island near Bali, one in the Middle East. There was an offer as well in England. But then I thought, I'm Filipino and I care about my environment, so I can complain about how the Philippines is, how bad traffic is from the stands, or I can do work directly and try to help directly through Palafox Associates.
So there was no pressure from the family. Somebody has to be an architect to take over.
Until now, he says I don't have to stay in the company.
Okay, there you go. So yes, Marites. Here. We can take 1 or 2 more questions before we break for lunch.
Good morning. I think all of us family corporations are undergoing this. So what we did is I listened to the course in Ateneo about family constitution, and we decided, I kept on nagging also the family, that we had to do this family constitution, because the companies who went through this are now up to the 5th generation and have not fought. So they guide you and give very good advice of how you can pass it on in a very democratic way, and laying all the groundworks, like what are the requirements for you to be able to join the company? Should you be a college graduate? Should you be a master's graduate? Or all these requirements. And when we did it, the children were so grateful that they said, we gave them an opportunity to be part of something like this, because at the end of the session, which was 2 days, they were the ones who crafted the Constitution. So we were able to see where they were coming from, and the consultants will give you a better idea of how to pass it on to those who like, and how you deal with those who will just be stockholders. So you are fair to everybody. Those who are working will get more. Those who are just stockholders. And those who are not qualified are not allowed to join. So I think we have to get professional help.
Okay, so
Virginia, I'll give you the number.
an advice there on forming your family constitution. So one question here, last question from Boots.
For either of you, or for both of you, would you suggest that before a family member works for the family, he works outside first with other people? And what's the benefit of doing so?
Yeah, it's better to work outside first. Like before Carmi joined us, he worked in England, and at least they can compare that not everything is greener outside. Maybe that's one reason. Yeah.
Another as well, of course, yeah, you learn more about being not the boss right away. Like you learn to be part of the staff. And then you get to learn from the other bosses outside of the family business. So yeah, definitely it helps.
Yeah. My only son Philip is joining us, but he's an architectural lighting consultant with Philips. Philip with Philips. At least he learned from Philips, and we're setting up a section for him. And at least he was able to experience working for a multinationals. And before I set up my own firm, I had several companies I've worked with. And that question's about changing also bosses. Like Baby Nuesa and I work both for Enrique Zobel and Jaime Zobel. It's completely different style. It's just like changing the lion as the king of the jungle. You change the lion as the king of the jungle, everything will change. So we should all be prepared for change.
So, okay, let's give them another round of applause, please, for architects June and Carmi Palafox. Can we call on Boots Garcia again to give our token of appreciation? We have cufflinks made by Ann Pamintuan and Evelyn, the first, the founding trustee of Women's Business Council and the only female former president of MAP, right? Evelyn, can you help us give our token of appreciation, please? So thank you very much. In a few minutes, you can take your lunch.